Vishnu Pada Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Anamine Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti namine, come to blind me. Namaste, Saraswati Devi, Gauravani Pracharine, Nirvasesha Sunyavadi, Pastyachari Satarine. Namaste, Saraswati Devi, Gauravani Pracharine, Nirvasesha Sunyavadi, Pastyachari Satarine. Namaste, Saraswati Devi, Gauravani Pracharine, Nirvasesha Sunyavadi, Pastyachari Satarine. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Gaur Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Where'd it go?
Do you want to share your screen?
Yeah, I want to share a screen now, but it's disappeared. It's not there. It was there just now. Technical itch here. We're just going to take that one off. Just give me a second. Don't know where it went. This is not it. Yeah, this is it.
This one?
Yeah. Just give us a second, Prabhu. It's technical itches. Where do I go now? Here? It's not there.
Let's see. It's not this one.
No, it's not. It's the other one.
Okay.
I had it on this one here.
This one.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. You can't do it when it's on that, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, I think. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. You can't do it when it's on that PowerPoint.
Yeah.
Krishna, Hare Hare.
Why is it taking this one?
Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. I'm going to close it. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Go back on Zoom. Rama Rama, Hare
It's
Hare.
not this one.
Zoom.
Yeah.
Oh, Hare Krishna. We're having a problem. I don't know why. I'm trying to get Yaya Nilo Prema Donna on the screen, and it's not
Yeah,
coming
there
up.
you go. It's this one.
What is it called? Yeah, here it is.
This one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Click it.
Yeah, yeah. And then you just click on it.
Can you see it?
Yes, Maharaj.
Sorry about that. Some technical issues. Nothing unusual. Because today is the disappearance day of three of our great acharyas. And those acharyas are here.
Yeah.
Ah, yeah, the slideshow.
Yeah.
Raghunatha Dasa Goswami, Raghunatha Bhatta Goswami, and Krsnadasa Kaviraja Goswami. So it's a very auspicious day indeed on our Vaishnava calendar. They all left the world, not the same time, but the same day, different years. But they chose to leave on this particular tithi. So it's a very great opportunity for us to enter a little bit into their association today. So as is traditional, even Srila Prabhupada sometimes would sing this song, Lamentation Due to Separation from the Lord and His Associates, sung by Narottam Das Thakur. Oh, and Prabhupada said that these songs are as good as the Vedas. They're not in one sense different to the Maha Mantra. They're different, of course, transcendentally one and different, but they're explanations, or we could say method or process of approaching the pure holy name. Because without going through the devotees, it's only by the mercy of the pure Vaishnavas that the holy, pure holy name will manifest, will reveal himself to us, or themselves to us. So we need to associate by hearing about, and of course trying to follow also, but hearing about these great Vaishnavas like Raghunatha Dasa Goswami, and two of the Goswamis, Raghunatha Bhatta Goswami and Krsnadasa Kaviraja Goswami, also one of the Vrindavan Goswamis. So we're going to sing this song now, lament song, which devotees often sing on these occasions to remind us how important it is to take advantage. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, Madhava Titi Bhakti Janani, that these days, these special days are just like mothers of devotion for those who observe them. It's like every baby needs a mother, a child needs a mother. Mother nurtures these days when these pure devotees make their presence, you could say, more accessible in one sense on these special occasions. At least there's more of an incentive there. They act like mothers of devotion for those who observe these days, and particularly, usual thing after a short night, Bhaktivinoda Thakur also explains that by hearing about these pure devotees of the Lord, one can get great satisfaction, great confidence, and great determination in our devotional service. So let's proceed now with this song. And lamenting, why are we lamenting? Well, I thought a devotee was supposed to be nasochiti, nakangshiti, no shochiti, no lamentation. So why are you lamenting? Well, the only thing of any real value, as Ramananda Roy said, there is no greater suffering or pain in this world than to be separated from the association of devotees. That I know no greater pain. Is Ramananda Roy to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu when he asked him, what is the greatest pain or suffering in this world? That was his answer. So that separation from devotees is unlike the material separation, which binds us in this material to another body, another mundane body, whatever it may be. But that attachment to the false, you could say, understanding of the self in the form of a material body or mind is the binding factor which keeps us in this samsara cycle. But when we become attached to transcendentalists, to pure devotees of the Lord, one can become free from bondage. Opposite. As Lord Kapila Dev says, prasangam ajaram pasham. That by every learned man knows that the greatest entanglement for the living entity is our attachment to material sense gratification. When that same attachment is transferred to the pure devotees of the Lord, then that attachment releases, liberates us from this material world. So to become attached to the devotees is, in one sense, inseparable from being attached to Krishna, but in one sense it's more important, it's more accessible. Krishna's approached through his devotees, and we may not be so pure to approach Krishna anyway, certainly not in most cases, but the pure devotees, they don't consider themselves qualified, but they are, and by taking shelter of those pure devotees, then Krishna is very pleased. So if our consciousness is, and it's only by their mercy that we can awaken Krishna consciousness. So to be devoid of their association is a most, say, lamentable situation. So, but that lamentation brings purification of the heart. It brings freedom, it releases us from material bondage. It attaches us. As you may know, the mood of vipralambha, separation from the Lord, is considered to be this ongoing, of course, ever increasing. That separation increases the pleasure of sambhog or meeting, which increases the taste of separation. So this mood of separation, the feeling of separation, naturally when we're separated, we start to think, oh, if only I hadn't done that, I could have done. We're always thinking like, I made a mistake or whatever I shouldn't have done. Now I'm separated. So the living entity, when we come to our senses, we're separated from Krishna. When we come to our senses, I shouldn't have done that. Shouldn't have done what? Shouldn't have turned against Krishna. Shouldn't have turned away from Krishna. Shouldn't have taken. So this way, by becoming attached to the devotees, our attention towards Krishna is channeled, dovetailed, gradually transformed into Krishna consciousness. So let's sing. Jayanilo Premadhano Koruna Pacho Jayanilo Premadhano Koruna Ina Prabhu Kota Gelacharya Tako Ina Prabhu Kota Gelacharya Tako Kahamo Prabhupada Kahasanatha Kahama Varuprupa Kahasanatha Karasa Raghunatha Patita Pavan Karasa Raghunatha Patita Pavan Bhatta Juga Kaviraja Eka Kale Kota Kela Gora Natara Eka Kale Kota Kela Gora Natara Pashane Hutibo Mata Anale Pashibo Pashane Hutibo Mata
Anale Pashigo
Goranga Gunera Niri Kota Kilipa Goranga Gunera Niri Kota Kilipa Tisabha Sangira Sange Koila Bila
Sava Sangira Sande Koiro Vira
Se Sangana Paya Kande Naruttamada Se Sangana Paya Kande
Naruttamada
Ye Anilo Premadonna Karuna Pracho Ye Anilo
Premadhana Karuna Prachu
Ina Prabhu Kota Yela Charya Tako Ina Prabhu Kota
Geracharya Taku
Kahamora Swarupupa Kaha Sanatha
Amora Sarupupa Saha Sanata
Kaviraja Raghunatha Dasa
Krsnadasa Raghunatha Dasa
Kahamora Bhatta Yuga Kaha Kaviraja
Sahamora Bhatta Juga Saha Kaviraja
Eka Kale Kota Gila Goranatara
Eka Kare Kota Gira Goranatara
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Ram Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama
Hare Rama
Rama
Hare
Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare
Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Go Premanandi Hari Hari Bo Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai Shri Gauratai Ki Jai Namaskar Sahai Sakor Ki
Jai
Prem Single Host Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki
Jai
Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyamakunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhana Ki
Jai
Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki
Jai
Shri Mayapur Dham Ki
Jai
Ganga Maya Ki
Jai
Yamuna Maya Ki
Jai
Tulasi Deva Ki
Jai
Bhakti Deva Ki
Jai
Samaveta Bhaktavinda Ki
Jai
Lord Chaitanya's Harinam Sankirtan Ki
Jai
Jai Shri Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai Agoda Premanande Srila Raghunatha Dasa Goswami Tirubha Maha Mahotsava Ki Jai
Jai.
Srila Raghunatha Bhatta Goswami Tirubha Maha Mahotsava Ki
Jai.
Srila Krsnadasa Kaviraja Goswami Maha Mahotsava Ki Jai
Jai.
All glories to the assembled devotees, all
Hare
glories to
Krishna.
Sri Guru Garanga, all glories to Sri Prabhupada. Go Premanandi. Hare Krishna. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvasesha Sunyavadi Pastyachare Shatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Jnanatimrandasya Gananjana Shalakya Chakshulnatam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manovistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Shvayam Rupagadamayam Dadati Svavadantikam Vandehang Sri Guru Sri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sarvetam Savarutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabando Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatorobhyascha Kripa Sindhuvyacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Prabhupada. Welcome everybody this morning or evening, wherever you are, afternoon, night. Krishna consciousness is going on all over the globe 24/7. Some of you may have heard about the horrible events that took place in Bangladesh a few days back, where one of our temples was pretty much destroyed by a gang of hooligans, and one devotee was beaten to death in that event. Not very nice news, but please bear that in mind. We're living in this material world. It's a dangerous place. It may not be that dangerous where we are or you are. I hope not. But these things are going on. It is a dangerous place, and the need for Krishna consciousness is very, very, very urgent. And of course, we know from our own parampara that there have been many incidences of such behavior. And even Hiranyakashipu trying to kill his own son, Haridas Thakur attempted to be beaten to death, Jesus Christ in the Christian tradition, so many places we find it. This is the material world, and generally speaking, conditioned souls are not inclined towards love of God. Natural inclination is there, but it's covered over so strongly by the influence of karma and the modes of nature and the living entity's desire to be separated from Krishna. So it's not surprising that these things take place. So many abominable things take place on the material or relative platform. These things take place on the relative platform, you could say. A devotee, I remember one time I was at one program in London, a TV program. They were interviewing various representatives of religious orders. And one Christian lady was being interviewed. She had terminal cancer. She was in her wheelchair. And she came on. I don't know if it was practiced or not, but she was challenged on this show by a panel of atheists, basically speaking. And they were challenging, where's your Jesus now? You're dying of terminal cancer. And she said, he's protecting me. He said, how is he protecting you? Doesn't look like it. You're dying of a terminal cancer. He said, no, he's protecting me. He said, how is that? He said, I have no fear. I feel his presence in my heart. I have no fear. She was very direct and bold and presumably Krishna conscious or Christ conscious. That mood, the devotee is protected in a different way, protected in dangerous situations. It's not just, there's danger at every step. It's not a question of trying to adjust this material world to be a situation which is just, materially speaking, so some kind of utopia. There's none. Death comes to everyone at some point of time. Disease, old age, sufferings are unavoidable. So to think that God's business is to protect us from the inevitable of the material world is not very mature. A deeper understanding, and we hope the Bhatta Prabhu was completely protected on this platform, is that the Lord in the heart protects one, because ultimately that is the situation we all have to face at that moment. We have to leave it. Whatever the causes may be, the principle is the same. Maybe for various reasons it happens in different ways, but the principle is the same. It is to take shelter of Krishna at that moment. That's the protection that Krishna reminds us. He reminds us of him because of the service you render in sincere endeavor. We're entirely dependent upon the Lord's mercy to remind us of him, and that's the real protection. And that you cannot necessarily see from an external, vision, especially when we have conditioned vision also. So when some devotee leaves his body for whatever the circumstances are, we can't necessarily say and judge it according to mundane perspective. It's a transcendental situation. Although on the mundane perspective, that's another thing which has to be dealt with, of course. As far as the individual is concerned, it's a very personal thing. And one can say maybe their life was perfected. It's a quick way to go, you could say, not to be wanted, but quick way, and life may be perfected in that way. So we have the other example where pure devotees of the Lord show a lifetime of pure devotional service, like Raghunatha Dasa Goswami, today being his Tirobhav. We spoke a little bit about his glorious service, a little bit, I don't know how much I can remember, whatever little bit comes by the grace of the Lord. Raghunatha Dasa Goswami and Krsnadasa Kaviraja. Krsnadasa Kaviraja Goswami, not so much is said because well, there was no real biography of Krsnadasa Kaviraja Goswami, and he didn't write about himself much in the Chaitanya. He compiled the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, as you well know, on the request of other devotees there in Vrindavan. It's interesting, he departed the world on this day that Raghunatha Dasa Goswami. Sometimes it's said that Raghunatha Dasa Goswami is his spiritual master, sometimes, but not always. So whatever it is, he's his Siksha Guru, because Krsnadasa Kaviraja Goswami received much of, let's say, what we find recorded in the Chaitanya Charitamrita from Raghunatha Dasa Goswami. With Raghunatha Dasa Goswami in Vrindavan, when he was there after Mahaprabhu's departure, would spend hours daily discussing with other devotees or sharing with other devotees the wonderful, beautiful pastimes of Lord Chaitanya in Jagannath Puri. So he got most of the, and that's what we find primarily in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, primarily the pastimes of Madhya Lila of Lord Chaitanya after taking sannyas, because Raghunatha Dasa Goswami was very much a part of most of that. And what he wasn't a part of, he heard from Swarup Damodar Goswami, and he took that to Vrindavan. Swarup Damodar Goswami, being Lord Chaitanya's personal secretary, of course, was privy to just about everything you could be privy to. And he was, Raghunath Das was, by Lord Chaitanya's arrangement, was given to Swarup Damodar. He was called Raghunath Swarup, the Swarup of the Raghunath of Swarup. He was under Swarup Damodar's Goswami's protection or guidance in Puri. So a very close, intimate relationship there. So Krsnadasa Kaviraja received, basically they found all the information. Of course, within the heart, he prayed to Madhamohan, the deity's garland fell on Krsnadasa Kaviraja when he was praying for permission to compile this literature. In his old age, he was practically blind and invalid when he was writing, very old age. And the Lord was dictating to him from within, but he heard mostly from Raghunatha Dasa Goswami. And already compiled at that time was the Chaitanya Mangala, and then later be called Chaitanya Bhagavat of Vrindavan Das Thakur. That was already compiled, which primarily deals with the Navadvip pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And like that. So Kaviraja Goswami also got from the diary of Mukunda, what's his name? Maharaj, no, Mukunda, Maharaj, anyway, someone. They compiled a very wonderful diary of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes there in Navadvip. And that was also available. So in that way, he got information of the Adi Lila, of the pastimes in Mayapur, Navadvip. But mostly Kaviraja Goswami was sharing. And he said quite clearly himself that he was just taking the remnants of Vrindavan. He considered Vrindavan Das Thakur like his guru also. He was the Vyas of Chaitanya Lila. And he was just filling in gaps. He said, I will not repetition, that would be a sign of pride. I will only briefly mention various pastimes which were more extensively described in the Chaitanya Bhagavat. So in his Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krsnadasa Kaviraja Goswami explains a lot of the discussions, philosophical discussions that Lord Chaitanya had, establishing the foundation of the Gaudiya Vaishnava Siddhanta. Discussions with Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, Prakashananda Saraswati, and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and Ramananda Roy, particularly. Much of the Madhya Lila is taken up with these discussions, as well as a description of the great tree of devotional service. So Kaviraja Goswami has presented this incredible literature for the benefit of the Bhakti Siddhanta Maharaj said, even if there's no other scriptures in the world other than Srimad Bhagavatam and Chaitanya, or no other literature other than Srimad Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita, there would be no loss whatsoever to the world. It would be perfect. And he said, even if Srimad Bhagavatam were not there, Chaitanya Charitamrita alone would suffice. It's such an important literature. Of course, it takes a little bit of, you could say, maturity to be able to associate with Chaitanya Charitamrita in the real sense of the term. It's not just about a story or just trying to learn something. It's the living force itself, this living example of the living force in eternity, the living example of Srimad Bhagavatam in the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his pure devotees. So Krsnadasa Kaviraja was one of those pure devotees who hailed from Bengal, and by the grace of Lord Nityananda, Nityananda told him, Nityananda is also his guru, told him to go to Vrindavan, and his life would become perfect. No, Nityananda was not physically present at that time. He, but in a dream, or in a trance-like state, he told him, because what happened in the house of Krsnadasa Kaviraja at that time in Bengal is that one day Miniketana Ram was one of the greatest devotees of Lord Nityananda. He was very extraordinary. I think an expansion of Aniruddha or Pradyumna, one of them. And he used to play a flute. And, he was quite eccentric as well. And he was a great, he would never stop chanting the glories of Nityananda. So he came to that house and where Kaviraja Goswami was staying. Kaviraja Goswami's brother didn't have much faith in Nityananda. He had faith in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but not Nityananda. So when Abhiram came there, he was playing, dancing, playing flute, whatever. The priest of the temple there didn't show much respect to Abhiram, and Abhiram chastised me. He accepted the chastisement, but Kaviraja Goswami's brother wasn't very happy with it. And he started to, after Abhiram, he started to criticize a little bit. Abhiram was very upset, broke his flute and left. And sure enough, in due course of time, Krsnadasa Kaviraja's brother fell down from devotional practices. And they had a debate. Kaviraja Goswami had a debate with his brother, trying to convince him, you can't worship Lord Chaitanya without Lord Nityananda. It doesn't work. It's like, he said, it's like a half-hen philosophy. You accept the eggs, you cut the head off. You cannot approach Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu other than through Lord Nityananda. They're not separated, they're eternally together. It's like Radha and Krishna are together. Now that's very interesting, because I think it's very interesting, but later on, already actually, prior to this, Raghunatha Dasa Goswami, one of the most important, significant aspects of Raghunatha Dasa Goswami's, let's say, teaching, if you wish to call it that, or example, was when he was a young boy, he was constantly trying to leave home and join Lord Chaitanya. We'll go to Raghunatha Dasa now. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was, of course, taking sannyas, and when Lord Chaitanya took sannyas, he was staying at the house of Advaitacharya. At that time, Raghunatha Dasa was the son of Govardhan Majumdar, and his uncle was Aranya Majumdar, came there to Shantipur to get Lord Chaitanya's darshan. He had that little opportunity. He became a madman to get the opportunity to join Lord Chaitanya. His father and his uncle were super rich, very, very rich. Raghunatha Dasa was their only son and the heir to their wealth. And, when they saw that Raghunatha was becoming incredibly attached to Lord Chaitanya taking sannyas, so he wanted to leave and go to join him. That was too much, as any normal parent probably would feel similar, especially if it's the only son, and he's leaving home to become a madman, a monk, a renunciate. Oh, that's too much. They were very, very concerned. Mother and father of Raghunatha were so concerned. Because Raghunatha had also, when he was a young boy, Haridas Thakur had come to their home. And Haridas was staying with Bhagavan Acharya, the priest of the family. And Haridas spent a lot of time, preaching, but inspiring young Raghunatha on the path of pure devotional service. So once in Haridas Thakur was his guru in that regards to, at least at that stage. So that seed, not so much of a seed, but a bursting sprout of devotion was very strong in Raghunatha Dasa Goswami's heart. And so when he met Lord Chaitanya, that was it. He just was trying to leave all the time. And he couldn't go. I mean, his parents would just tie him down. They had guards on him. They would keep him locked up sometimes. Constant vigilance to try to make sure he didn't leave home. And again, later on, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to that area where Raghunatha was staying, and somehow or another, under great guards and everything, the family couldn't stop him. They tried everything. Actually, they got him married to a beautiful girl. They thought this would be the best way to tie the boy down, get him married to a Miss World, and he'll never leave home. And she was so beautiful, said that she was more beautiful than Indra's consort Sachi. So it's a very beautiful lady, and they married her, but he was seen to have no interest whatsoever in the business, and so on and so forth. But anyway, when Lord Chaitanya came there, again, they let him go with many guards. And this time Lord Chaitanya said, don't be a crazy fellow. Act properly, perform your duty. When the time comes, Krishna will release you. Act like a pounds and pence man. So he took Lord Chaitanya's instruction, and he did. He started to behave like a good young man. And to such an extent that one time, his father and his uncle, they were landowners, zamindars, and they were taking tax, large amounts of tax, 2 million, equivalent of 2 million rupees tax a month or whatever, year, I don't know. But anyway, a lot of tax. But they were keeping more than they should of the tax. There was one local Muslim called Chowdhury. He's like representative of the government, who normally collects all the taxes from the zamindars, from the landowners, and delivers it to the Shah or the king. But in this case, they were going straight to the king, and the poor Chowdhury was missing out on his cut. So he got really upset and started complaining left and right and making up stories, and reported to the Shah, these two fellows they're usurping government funds, they're stealing from you, they're taking more than their fair share. And so the king therefore ordered they should be arrested or brought to him to find out what's going on. So he sent his men there, but Govardhan and Hiranya had heard what was going on, so they left home and they went somewhere else. They were hiding. So when the guards came, and they weren't there, only Raghunatha was a young boy, he was there, so they arrested him instead. And so they brought him before the king. The king was thinking to punish him, what's going on here? And then Raghunatha said there were different things. And the king was very satisfied. He couldn't punish him. He couldn't do it. So he just couldn't do it. The Chowdhury was there and said, actually, you're just like my uncle, because you and my father, my grandfather or whatever, they were very close associates, and you should be, you shouldn't punish me. And he was so angelic looking that he couldn't punish you. He just couldn't do it. So eventually he said, all right, but you make some arrangement to solve this problem. So he did. Raghunatha went back and talked to his father and uncle, and they resolved the whole thing, and the Chowdhury got some cut of some kind and was satisfied. Very diplomatic, expert in diplomacy, and he was behaving like a nice boy in many ways. So they released you could say, the guards. It became a little less, strict. So one time when Lord Nityananda was sent to Bengal by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to preach, he came first to Panihati, which is not far from where Raghunatha Das was living, Chaptagram, some village. It was not far from there. So when they heard that Nityananda had come, then Raghunatha Das went to see him. He seemed to be like a good boy now. And the parents were not quite so vigilant, but somehow or another he got to see Lord Nityananda, but he stayed at a distance for various reasons. He was at a distance, and he paid his obeisances from a distance out of humility. And Nityananda saw him, and he said, "Who is that?" And they said, "That is Raghunatha Das offering his obeisances to you from a distance." And Lord Nityananda said, "Hey, come here, you thief!" And he dragged him there. And Lord Nityananda said, "You are a thief." You are staying at a distance, hiding just like a thief. They stay at a distance. They don't show their face in front usually. Now, you are just like a thief, maybe referring to the fact that his family had been, usurping or stealing, taking more than they should from the government, but not exactly. Lord Nityananda then put his feet on Raghunatha Dasa's head, and Raghunatha Das Goswami, of course, was in bliss. And then Lord Nityananda said, I am going to punish you now because you are a thief. You have to make me and all of my associates a feast of chip rice and yogurt, and feed us all to our heart's content here on the bank of the Ganges. So Raghunath was very, very, very happy. And being from a very, very rich family, it wasn't a problem. So he made all arrangements for fabulous arrangements. And hundreds and thousands of people, when they heard there was a feast, suddenly turned up. Sounds like an ISKCON temple on Sunday afternoon or on Janmashtami or something. Thousands of people turned up. People were coming to sell their foodstuffs as well, as often happens, and devotees sometimes try to give it a bit of enterprise when ISKCON has some festival or something and try to make a little bit of money for themselves or something. It's nothing new. So many things. And Raghunath was buying all of their products and using it to cook more foodstuffs for all the people who were coming. And then he'd feed the people he just bought all the food from, free of charge. And it was a great festival, and the devotees were ecstatic, so ecstatic during that particular festival. Lord Nityananda was he called Chaitanya Mahaprabhu suddenly appeared at that festival. No, everyone could see him. And they were playing games with each other. Lord Nityananda was taking food out of people's pots. They all had 2 clay pots, and they mixed the chip rice in condensed milk and yogurt and so on, and bananas and all kinds of things were mixed in. And people were taking their chip rice in the Ganges River or on the banks, wherever they could find a space, and other things were there too. And Lord Chaitanya suddenly appeared, and Nityananda would steal or take from someone's pot some chip rice and push it into Lord Chaitanya's mouth. And they would laugh, and Lord Chaitanya would push them into Nityananda's mouth. They were having a festival, complete festival there. Everyone was in ecstasy. Raghava Pandit came there, another great associate of the Lord, asking the Lord to please come to his house to take prasadam. He said, no, I've just had a feast here. Raghunath's given us a feast. I'm full. I'll come in the evening. So anyway, this festival went on. And then in the evening, when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went there to Raghava Pandit's house, Raghunath Goswami, Raghunath Das was also there. He asked all the devotees to bless Raghunath Das, that he become freed from his bondage in this material world and attain his heart's desire to be surrendered at the lotus feet of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for eternity. So they did, they all blessed him and so on. And Raghunath gave great wealth to all the devotees there, rich family, to Nityananda and so on, etc. But the essence of this particular pastime is not so much about, let's say, being punished or whatever it is, or being a thief. The real essence of being that theft, of being a thief, is that Raghunath was trying to go directly to Lord Chaitanya, and Nityananda taught him, you can't do that. That's not possible. You have to get my mercy and my devotee's mercy before you can go to Lord Chaitanya. So this is an important thing to remember. So that way he got Nityananda's blessings. He was punished by Nityananda, chastised. He got his full blessings, and he served Nityananda. And by Nityananda's mercy, it wasn't long after that he was able to escape. We say the guards were still there, but they were not quite so vigilant. Raghunath was sleeping on what's called the Durga Mandap, a little area just on the outside of the house. One night, guards were there, but they fell asleep. In the middle of the night, somehow the Yadunandana Acharya was the Acharya, one of the gurus of the family, also there, like his spiritual master also. He suddenly came in the night, and he said, I need your help urgently. My regular priest is gone. He's left his duties. I need you to bring him back or to help with the duties. Please come now. It's urgent. So Raghunath thought, this is a bona fide authorized way to maybe escape. So he went with Yadunandan, and they went off into the forest on their way to the abode or the residence of Yadunandan. And on the way, Raghunath said, don't worry, I will go find this devotee and I will bring him to you. Don't worry. You don't need to bother. I will do it. Someone or other, Janananda was convinced and left Raghunath to do the job of Raghunath. I don't know if this is a precedent or an excuse for telling a little white lie for a higher purpose. He didn't do that. He decided, now is my chance to escape. Imagine, escape from great wealth, loving parents, beautiful wife, a great future. You know, it's like, escape, you must be crazy. But he had no interest in it. He was really up to Ragamishate, his mood. Of course, everything can be used in Krishna service. In his particular case, this wasn't what was to be used in Krishna service. It's not just about anything, it's about what we're supposed to use in Krishna service. And he had no interest at all in men, women, money, followers, sense enjoyment, no interest. He had everything. There's one thing giving up when we have nothing, or very little, or just suffering. But when you've got materially everything you could dream of practically, and you just give it up like a piece of straw, a piece of stool or something, just walked away from it. Into the jungles, he walked 30 miles, 40 miles a day, non-stop, almost all the way to Puri. 12 days it took him. He didn't eat only on 2 or 3 occasions the whole way, fasting. He was so determined to get to Lord Chaitanya. His parents, when they found out he wasn't there in the morning, they became shocked. They quickly went to Yadunandan and he said, no way, I don't know what happened. He did his business, he left, I don't know what happened. He had no idea. And then they realized that Shivananda Sain and Vasudev Dutt and others were on their way to Puri for the Rath Yatra. So they sent many guards to chase after that party, thinking that Raghunath must have joined them to go to Puri. So they went there and they said, oh, Shivananda Sain, there's nobody here. Raghunath never came here. We don't know where he went. Parents were really devastated, you can imagine. They couldn't find him. Guards would go because he didn't go on the normal roads. He didn't even go on the village tracks. He went through the jungle, dangerous jungle, and hardly sleeping at all, just walking, desperately eager to get there. But somehow or another, such determination to achieve his transcendental goal at all costs. God may not be ready for that. But ultimately, we have to realize that every other so-called important responsibility or valuable thing is of no value in the face of pure devotion. It's like a glowworm in the daytime. It has no light at all, no meaning. At night, it might be attractive, but in the day, you can't even see it. So Raghunatha Dasa was eventually arrived in Puri and fell at the lotus feet of Lord Chaitanya, as we said earlier. Then Lord placed him under the protection or the shelter of Damodar Goswami and was his intimate associate in Puri. And he was receiving, Lord Chaitanya was very affectionate towards him because he already knew him, of course. He was waiting for him to come. He had a special mission for Raghunatha Dasa. Each of the Goswamis have specific missions in their service to the Lord. Raghunatha Dasa was tremendous renunciation, emblem of renunciation. Others may have, everyone's renounced. Real renunciation, Lord Chaitanya taught, is not giving things up. Is actually anashrita karma palam karyam karma kurti, asasanyasi yogicha, nirniragni chakriya, is to perform whatever one's duty is according to the different svadharmas, to perform one's duty, but at the same time not to be attached to it, or be attached to the performing one's duty, but not the fruits of the work, not seeing oneself as a doer. As soon as we see ourselves as a doer, we become implicated. So this activity, so Raghunatha Dasa Goswami, his role, Lord Chaitanya's role for him was what appears to be external renunciation, but his main role was attachment to the Lord. That was his main role. One time he asked Lord Chaitanya, now here I've renounced the world, what is my duty? Lord Chaitanya said, I don't know so much about these things. Swarup Damodar is much more learned than I am. You ask him. So he asked Swarup Damodar and said three things. He said, no Gramya Katha, no mundane village talk, wasting time talking about the weather and this and that. None of that stuff. No Gramya Katha, and no dressing in a very fancy way. Dress very simply and oh no, so tired I can't remember what I'm saying. Oh, and no fancy eating. Don't eat opulent food, eat very simply. So Raghunatha took those 3 points as his, you could say, his guideline in life. Very interesting points which Swarup Damodar pointed out. And he said, in your heart of hearts, always remember Radha and Krishna. Always meditate. This is the real renunciation, is to be absorbed in Radha and Krishna. Now, those 3 other things we could say in relationship to the externals. If we dress in a, let's say, no, if we eat fancy food, Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj describes, that only affects us. If we eat fancy food. If we dress fancy, it affects others, because those who see it also may become inclined to dress the same way, and thus we entangle others also. But if we talk nonsense, the whole world is disturbed. So talking nonsense is the worst of those 3 by far and away. Try not to talk nonsense, Gramya Katha, idle, waste of time, talking, just causing disturbance to the ether, entangling all living entities to some degree, maybe tiny, but to some degree, and further implications in the material sojourn. So this way he received instructions. He lived by it. He was living very simply. At first he was taking remnants of Lord Chaitanya, sometimes taking prasad with Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and then he gave it up. And he was just taking prasadam at the Singadwar gate, whatever prasadam came its way. But when his parents found out what had happened, that he'd actually arrived in Puri, and they kind of resigned themselves to the fact that they're not going to get him back very easily. So they sent servants to Puri with lots of, say, sufficient wealth to make sure that Raghunatha was nicely cared for. Rich people. So these servants came, and Raghunatha received the gifts, or the grant, whatever it is, sponsorship from his parents, and he utilized it all to feed Lord Chaitanya and his devotees. He was paying for the prasadam. So this way, he took advantage of his parents' wealth. But after a while, he gave up, and Lord Chaitanya said, what's happened? Raghunatha's not inviting us anymore for prasadam. So Damodar explained that actually, no, he's given that up. He's now going again to the Singadwar gate and begging there at the Singadwar gate. Lord Chaitanya said it's very good, because he was accepting money from worldly people. Of course, his parents were devotees, but they were known a little bit as, materialistic devotees. At least they were in that position of being a little bit materialistic. So being a little bit materialistic, they weren't considered pure devotees. So Lord Chaitanya said, this is very good, because he said, if you eat food, 2 sides. If you eat food which is cooked by those who are not in good consciousness, our consciousness becomes disturbed. That's why we don't eat food outside, because it's cooked by persons for goodness knows what reason, usually mundane. And even if they're so-called, godly or whatever, they're usually cooking not for the pleasure of the Lord, it's usually for their own sense enjoyment, or to make money or something or another. So if we eat that type of food, Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj said, our mind becomes wicked. We can become very disturbed, even amongst devotees who are disturbed or not following properly, insincere, or cooking for sense gratification. It also disturbs their consciousness. It's a very fine science of culinary arts. It's not just about eating vegetarian food and sticking it in front of a picture, which is pretty good if we're doing that much, but that's just like step 1 on the path of freedom. But the pure consciousness is simply for the pleasure of Krishna. We prepare foods for Krishna's pleasure. So taking the remnants of such food, one's heart becomes purified. But when we take food cooked by those who have materialistic consciousness, then their consciousness becomes covered also. Of course, if in certain circumstances, the Lord may overlook that because of unavoidable circumstances, but especially if it's wantingly, oh, I like. When Prabhupada went to Malaysia in 1971, that was the first lesson he taught, because the devotees, the young disciples of Prabhupada, 4 or 5 of them were there, and they were relishing, I don't know, relishing, but they were caught up in going from one Hindu family to the next and just eating delicious foodstuffs, gulab jamuns and parathas and idli and dosa and sambar and so many preparations, so many delicious foodstuffs, sambar, so many things, murku, roti canai, and nasi lemak, and so many things. And they were just getting, they were just eating. No, they're Hindus, they're Indians. That's okay. Just eating and eating and eating. When Prabhupada came there and he saw what was going on, Prabhupada did not eat a single cooked meal the whole time he was there, except for in the house of one Mr. Gupta and his wife, who were vegetarian Vaishnavas from Mathura. Otherwise, he didn't eat anything in anyone's house. Nothing except for fruit. Nothing else. Even his own disciples, he was not accepting food, cooked food from, because they were cooking, they didn't have proper facilities. He wouldn't eat that. Even he was teaching, not it was disrespectful, exactly. He wanted to teach his disciples a big lesson here. We're not here to eat. We're here, eating is for service, not, we don't have businesses. Our service is not eating. We eat for service, whatever is favorable to keep good consciousness. Only prasadam, nothing else. Therefore, Prabhupada said, we don't eat on restaurants, airports, airplanes, and all these things. We only eat prasadam. Sometimes you have to because of health reasons, traveling, and so on. But basic principle is no. Try to avoid it. So Raghunatha Dasa taught that. That's very important. And then, of course, after some time, it was seen he wasn't eating anymore at the Singadwara gate. Where is he going now? He's going to the chatas, the places where they give free meals to the sadhus or beggars or whatever. So he was going there. Lochan says it's very good because why? Because when you're begging like this, it's almost like what Chaitanya said. This is almost like a prostitute, hoping the next person will give, and maybe the next one will give, maybe the next one will give. It's sometimes we have to do that, but it's in Sankirtan, it's a little bit like that. But what to do? People are not queuing up for the books, as one devotee said yesterday when we were on Sankirtan. They're not exactly queuing up. They're not stopping. They're not taking books. We have to make that effort and hope that somehow, by the mercy of the Lord, somebody is going to get that mercy. Somebody's going to get it. So then he was taking that. And then after a while, he stopped doing that. And then, where is he? Srup Damodar said, where's he gone? He's not there anymore. And Srup Damodar said, he's now taking the leftovers, what they throw away from the stores, storekeepers. They throw it out for the cows, and he's just taking that which the cows leave behind. He washes it. It's just like a hard kernel in most cases. And that's his sustenance. He's just taking that for his daily sustenance. Lord Chaitanya was, oh, what is this? He went there to see what was going on. And he saw Raghunatha Dasa Goswami there cleaning this condemned or rejected rice. He said, Raghunath, what are you doing? What are you doing here? You're having a feast every day and you're not inviting me? And Lord Chaitanya tried to grab some of that prasadam. He grabbed some, took this. This is the most delicious prasadam I've ever experienced, Raghunath. Hey, my Lord, no, this is not fit for you. This is rejected. In this way, they had their pastimes there, just like with Sudama Vipra in Dwarka, something like that, also similar mood. So Raghunatha Dasa, in this way, emblem of renunciation. And he stayed there during Lord Chaitanya's time in Jagannath Puri, at that time, relishing the opportunity to associate with Lord Chaitanya. When Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left this world, unmanifested his pastimes, Lord Chaitanya had given him the direction to go to Vrindavan. He gave this direction to many, also to devotees, also to Raghunath Bhatta, also eventually, to go to Vrindavan and to serve under Rupa and Sanatan. So he did. He left Puri and he went to Vrindavan. to serve under Rupa and Sanatan. So there he took shelter of Rupa and Sanatan, but his first intention was to jump off of Govardhan Hill and give up his body, because what's the use? Lord Chaitanya's left, and now what am I going to do? Rupa and Sanatan told him, this is not to be done. This body doesn't belong to you. You can't do like this. You have to utilize this in Krishna's service. So he didn't do that, but he stayed there in Vrindavan with the Goswamis, mostly at Radhakund, as many of you are familiar. And there he performed the tremendous austerities where he was barely sleeping. Goswamis would come together, sometimes separate, and discuss, and Lord Raghunath would discuss Chaitanya Leela. Raghunath Bhatta was expert. Raghunath Bhatta, the other Goswami, whose disappearance it is today, was very, very expert at reciting Bhagavatam in many different tunes. He was so poetic and so musical. He could sing the whole Bhagavatam in different tunes, so sweet that nobody could stop hearing it. So he was famous, and Raghunath for the Chaitanya Leela. So he would go sometimes here and there, but mostly he was in Radhakund and Vrindavan. And he was practically not eating, just taking a palmful of buttermilk daily, practically, if that, sleeping 1 hour, maybe maximum 1.5 hours, chanting at least 100,000 names a day, circumambling Govardhan Hill every day, taking bath at least 3 times daily in Radhakund, and offering obeisances at least 1,000 times to the Lord, and at least 2,000 times to devotees. In this way, and performing bhajans as well. In this way, his day was fully occupied in pure devotional service, constantly engaged in service. He was younger, of course, than Sanatan and Rupa, so he's kind of under their tutelage. But one day he, Raghunath, where are we going here? Anyway, I'll jump onto another one. Sorry, I'm a little bit tired. I slipped there. Raghunatha Dasa was there in Radhakund. One day he was performing his bhajans on the banks of Radhakund, and he had no kutir. He would just sit outside. He didn't care in the sun and the cold. He was so absorbed in bhajan. And one day he was there in bushes on the banks of Radhakund, and one tiger came right next to him drinking from Radhakund, and he didn't even budge. A dangerous tiger. Sanatana Goswami saw this and said, my goodness. And what happened? There are different stories, but let's tell the one that sounds nice. The story goes that that tiger then, Krishna came and protected Raghunath from that tiger, so the tiger went away. And when Sanatana saw this, he said, how can you do this, Raghunath? You're there, and don't you realize that Krishna came? Krishna was there to protect you from that tiger? I don't know. And the Raghunath wasn't worthy. He wasn't attached to anything. But anyway, he just carried on there in Radhakund. And after a while, one day it was so hot. Raghunath was doing his bhajan out in the open air. It was so hot, boiling hot. You know, it was burning from the sun. And then Sanatana Goswami saw from a distance, suddenly Radharani came there and held her own sari over Raghunath Dasa's head to protect him from the sun. And Radharani was sweating like anything. As Sanatana Goswami immediately came there, Radharani manifested herself, and he chastised him like anything. Now you have gone to the extremity. First you engage the Lord in your service. We're supposed to be assistants of Radharani, and now you're engaging Srimati Radhika in your service. I cannot tolerate this any longer. You must build yourself a kutir. And he ordered him. So then he had a small kutir there and continued to chant japa and bhajans in his kutir, etc. And in this way, one day, one devotee named Das Govardhan, he was a devotee of Govardhan there, he saw that Raghunath was hardly eating, so he thought he would like to do some service for Raghunath. So Raghunath had these tiny, tiny little leaf cups that he would take every day for his sustenance, next to nothing. So Das, he thought, I'll get him a nicer leaf cup. You get this oftentimes. You've got something which is sufficient. Somebody, you know, for various reasons, brings you something else which is not as suitable, but insists you take it. Then they take your old one. So, there's that. But they're a little different. Das was thinking of serving Raghunath. And so he went and he saw these fantastic trees, some silk trees or something or other, and he saw they had beautiful leaves. So he had the nice leaf cup made from these beautiful leaves, and he brought some buttermilk in these big leaf cups to Raghunath, and he offered it. And Raghunath said, "Oh, these are very nice. Where did you get these nice leaf cups from?" And he said, "Oh, when I was traveling around Govardhan, I passed through Sakistali, and there I saw these beautiful leaf cups. So I thought, this would be nice. I can do this service. Please accept this." And when Raghunatha Das heard Sakistali, he went into a rage. He knocked the leaf cup flying. The buttermilk went everywhere. He said, "I will not touch anything from Sakistali. That is the home of Chandravali." And Chandravali is the number one competitor of Radharani. There's these two parties, even in the spiritual world, this competition. So Chandravali, that's her home, and one of her homes in Sakistali, and all of her associates there. So they wouldn't touch anything. Das Govardhan was so impressed by his chastity to Radharani. He was an eternal associate, usually known as Rati Manjari in the spiritual realm, one of the intimate Manjaris assisting pastimes of Radha and Krishna. He was so austere. One time he got sick one day, and some Vaidya came there and said, "What's the sickness?" He said, Raghunath is very sick. He said, "It's a stomach problem due to overeating." Everyone laughed. They said, "What are you talking about? He doesn't eat anything." No, it's overeating. And then Raghunath Das laughed. He said, "Yes, it's true. Last night in my vision, the Lord somehow prasadam, there was lots of delicious sweet rice offered. And I honored so much sweet rice in my bhajan last night. So in this way, he didn't eat anything. But in his bhajan, he was going through this pastime of honoring sweet rice prasadam, and he wasn't used to it, I guess. He couldn't digest it." So like this. Sometimes his tongue would say to him, Raghunath, you have to eat something. We're starving to death here. We're all going to die if you don't eat. And he said, "What are you talking about? There's nothing sweeter than the ambrosia of the name Shyamasundar. The name Madhava is more, delectable than cream. The name Radharani is, more fragrant than the camphor. In this way, be satisfied. Just taste the sweet holy names of the Lord, and this way we can survive." He preached to his tongue. Usually our tongue preaches to us, and we become surrendered to our tongue. Of course, it's prasadam, so it's not that as good, actually. Helps to free us from other tastes. But in Raghunath's case, no, it was the holy name. The holy name is surely all that be. Anyway, Raghunath like this, he was living in Vrindavan. He is the Acharya. Each one of the Goswamis had their role to play, as we said. His was especially extreme, you could say, extreme renunciation, could not be imitated by anyone else, practically speaking. Just living example on the order of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He's, of course, extremely humble and tolerant, all the other qualities there. But this specific one, this specific quality of Raghunath Das, Goswami of renunciation. He's also the Acharya. It's not that the Goswamis are on the level of like Sambandha Gyan or initial connection with the Lord or Abhideya practicing. They're all on the topmost platform, but they may be teaching the world certain aspects of pure devotional service. So Sanatana Goswami was generally understood to be the Acharya of Sambandha Gyan, in basic connection through the parampara, disciplic succession, through Sanatana Goswami and the line therein. That's why his appearance day is on Guru Purnima. And Sanatana Goswami is the Sambandha at the beginning, knowledge, acquiring knowledge of our constitution and the practice, or that's it, the knowledge referring to our constitute, different tattvas. And then there's the Abhideya Gyan, which is the path chalked out by Rupa Goswami in the Nectar of Devotion, particularly Nectar of Instruction and other literatures. Rupa Goswami, Abhideya Acharya, and the topmost perfection, Prayojana, is Raghunatha Dasa Goswami. That was his thing. He wasn't showing an example so much of Abhiday or Sambandh, because he was so absorbed in this internal bhakti, internal devotional service. But of course, he taught the real example of following the Guru's instruction and making that one's life and soul, whatever it may be, and the perfection in life. So anyway, his samadhi is there. There's one other thing comes to mind. When he was sitting on the banks of Radhakund, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu were long past from his pastimes, as we heard. But Radhakund and Shyamakund had been discovered by Lord Chaitanya, but they were just ponds. It was very hard to bathe properly. So he was sometimes thinking like that it would be nice if we could have nice kunds for the pilgrims and the devotees to take baths or to take water, or whatever they were doing. So he was thinking like that. He had no means. He thought, this is stupid. I haven't got anything to even think about doing this. But anyway, at the same time, there was one very rich merchant who was visiting Badrik Ashram, and he was thinking of making a big donation to Badrik Ashram. But whilst he was there, he had a dream. And in the dream, the personified Badrinath appeared to him and said, my dear devotee, I don't want you to give this donation here. I want you to go to Radhakund in Govardhan, and I want you to find out Raghunatha Dasa, who is sitting there doing bhajan. I want you to give this donation to him for a worthy cause. So the merchant, being a devotee, did follow what it was told in the dream, and he went to Govardhan and he found Raghunath at Radhakund, and he offered wealth to him. Raghunath at first was thinking, what do I want to have wealth for? I said, again, another entanglement. Death near, in one sense. But he thought, no, let this be used to make beautiful, excavate the kunds and make beautiful steps down to the kunds, which he did by the grace of that merchant. So that way, Radhakund and Shyamakund were. But as they were doing excavating Shyamakund, Radhakund was square, more or less square. He wanted to do rectangular, but as they were about to cut that night, in his vision, Yudhisthira appeared in the heart of Raghunath, said, please don't cut me, because they were going to cut some trees down to make it, symmetric, rectangular. Please don't cut me. Myself and my brothers are sitting here at Radhakund, at Krishnakund, and Shyamakund, rather, in the form of trees. So please don't cut us down. The Pandavas were sitting there at Shyamakund, and still are. I mean, we may not see them all. I don't think they're all there now. But that's why Shyamakund is odd shaped, because of the trees in the various corners were there. And Raghunath didn't have them cut down. So they remain there in this holy place of Shyamakund. So, Hare Krishna, Raghunath Dasa Goswami ki jai. Not much about Raghunath Bhatta. He was the son of Tapan Mishra. When Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to East Bengal, when Lord Chaitanya was married at that time, Nimai Pandit, he was known as, was married to Lakshmi Priya, and he thought, now I'm married, I should, need a bit of wealth. So he went to East Bengal he was a scholar, a teacher, so he went there to teach. And whilst he was there, he met Tapan Mishra. Tapan Mishra was a devotee, but he was a bit bewildered about the goal of life. At this time, Lord Chaitanya had not really preached to anyone, a little bit to the Digbijay Pandit, but basically nobody at that time. Lord Chaitanya was not appearing to be a devotee. He was a Brahmin, scholar, teacher, but not a devotee. So when he met Tapan Mishra, and Tapan Mishra asked him with all of his heart, he was coming to see him. Lord Chaitanya actually, first time, really, a little bit with Digbijay, that he really preached to him about pure bhakti yoga. Tapan Mishra was the recipient of this, practically the first recipient, practically. And Tapan Mishra had a son, Raghunath, also Raghunath Bhatta. So Lord Chaitanya had a baby, it was practically a baby at that time. Lord Chaitanya blessed the child and told Tapan Mishra that you should stay here. He said, can I come and join you in Nagpur? He said, no, you have to go to Varanasi, and there I will meet you in Varanasi later on. I have a mission in Varanasi. So Tapan Mishra left, went to Varanasi, and later on, Lord Chaitanya took sannyas. He came through Varanasi on the way to Vrindavan, and then again on his way back, especially on the way back. By this time, the boy had grown up considerably, of course. And there was only 3 devotees that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stayed in the house of Chandrasekhar Charya and took his meals in the house of Tapanamishwar. So Raghunatha at this time got a lot of opportunity to associate and serve Lord Chaitanya. 2 or 3 months, Lord Chaitanya was there in Varanasi. So Raghunatha Bhatta got that opportunity and got the requested also that he could come and join Lord Chaitanya in Puri. And Raghunatha Bhatta did, one of the early ones actually, to go and join Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Puri, which he did. He stayed there as a young boy, young man, in Puri for some time. Now Lord Chaitanya told him after a while, go back to Varanasi and look after your elderly parents. So he did. Raghunatha Bhatta went back again. Lord Chaitanya told him to get married actually and go back and look after his parents. So he went back. He didn't get married, but he looked after his parents. And then after a while, his parents left their body. And again in the vision, Lord Chaitanya told him to come back again to Puri, and he went back to Puri, and there he basically he stayed in Puri for some time in the association of devotees, and then Lord Chaitanya sent him to Vrindavan after some time. But he renounced the order of life. He didn't take the Grihastha life. He was so fixed in his Srimad Bhagavatam and his devotion to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And there he lived in Puri for quite some long time. And not so much is mentioned about Raghunatha Bhatta, except for his recital regularly of Srimad Bhagavatam. He felt himself so lowly, he didn't want his name to be mentioned in the literatures of the Goswamis, etc., etc. But he did assist. It said that he was a priest for the Radha Govinda temple when Rupa Goswami established the worship of Radha Govinda, and he had various items, gifts from Lord Chaitanya, and various things which they all did, receiving various gifts from Mahaprabhu, which he usually kept in the temples, various temples there in Radha Gokulananda temple, and the Radha Gopinath temple, and so on and so forth, which were related to these great Goswamis, especially Radha Govinda temple is related to Raghunatha Bhatta, and his samadhi is there. I think it's in the 64 samadhis area, if I'm not mistaken. I think it is in Vrindavan. So Hare Krishna, on this glorious day of the Tirobhava of these great Goswamis, our acharyas, our Siksha gurus, we could say our strength comes from their mercy. Take shelter, pray for their mercy, so we can become servants of the servant, 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 servant. This way, maybe Krishna will be pleased. Hare Krishna. So I'm going to finish there. Hare Krishna. Sorry about that. If there's any mistakes or any offenses in the course of our discussion, I didn't really do much preparation, if any. Whatever comes out. Thank you all very much. Any questions on this subject matter? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Something's coming up. We're coming soon.
No, that was us.
We're coming soon. We hope we're coming soon. We'll have to see what COVID talk does about that one. Let's see.
Okay.
We may be coming soon.
Should we exit?
No. They'll come. Yeah, they take about 5 minutes before the questions come. We have a kirtan anyway. I can. You don't need to work.
Okay.
Do it. Next, Sikananda, Tom Adams. Here we go. Haribol, Tom. How are they? I hope they're looking after the cows. Are looking after you nicely. I hope the cows are looking after you. Tom is looking after cows in New Gokul. I'll tell you frankly, there is no one more wonderful service. I mean, there are, but every service is the most wonderful service. And looking after cow or being looked after by cows, actually, we're not really capable of looking after them. They look after us. They're just so dear to Krishna. Prabhupada one time said that of all living entities, the Brahmins and the cows are the most important to look after. And of the two, the cows are more important. Looking after Brahmins is so important. So important. Yeah, no problem.
I just wanted to ask you, should I set breakfast?
Yes, please. Yes, thank you.
Porridge,
Maybe. Thank you. Thank you very much. Vidura has to go now. We Prashadam time. But we're looking into getting more cows here in New Mayapur. We've been talking about a lot the last few months. And one of our cows passed away yesterday. We've only got one cow left now in New Mayapur. So we need more cows here. Prabhupada talked a lot about cow protection and farming at New Mayapur. So that's our next project here at New Mayapur, to try to build up, besides connect the boiler to the system, wood urn. And then the cow project is the next one here, to try to build up the Goswami again. So we have a question from Tom, who is being looked after by the cows at New Gokul in Sydney. Rasikananda first. Regarding first Rasikananda, no fancy dressing. How do we judge that? Should men just wear either white or saffron? No, it depends what ashram you're in. You should wear tree bark if possible, or a beer barrel. And nowadays they wear beer barrels. So that which is practical for your service. Nothing more, whatever is required. You got to feel comfortable in your dress. We're not Raghunatha Dasa Goswami. We do have material desires. We do have material needs and tastes a little bit, but not overboard. Moderation. Not that we have 500 sets of shoes, 200 suits, and we wear it once and then another one. Practical. Utilize things properly in Krishna's service. That which fits our lifestyle, our ashram, our varna, whatever it is, and don't unnecessarily waste money on things when we don't need to, but that which works, that which is practical. Everyone's different. You can't get into fine details, but not for show. Now, of course, ladies may be a little different. It's natural that they have a different psychology, but still it shouldn't be overboard. We're not here to show. We're here, we're here to show Krishna, decorate the deity beautifully, show Krishna. So whatever it's like, first we dress, then we address. First we dress, then we address. So we have to do the needful to do our service. If we're preaching, we should be smart, clean, and tidy. We shouldn't look like some kind of, what do you call it? Some kind of joker. What's it called? Anyway, a crazy guy on the street, some show of some kind. We have our service to do in life, and do the needful. Keep it simple as we can. Don't waste money, time, energy, and risking that, people trying to imitate our dress. We're not here to imitate dress. We're here to follow the heart, to follow the instructions of the pure devotee. We dress in devotee clothes, and we should dress neatly and tidily, Prabhupada said, because when people see someone dressed in devotee clothes, they remember Krishna or something like it. Well, they say, who are those funny people? Someone said, oh, that's the Haris, the Hare Krishnas. Oh, they're crazy. But they get some benefit from that. They remember Krishna. And even if they don't, when they see a devotee, it stands out. Especially the kirtan part is going on. If you're just walking along with jeans on, nobody cares less about you. You're just like everyone else. When they see someone with a Dodian sari or something on High Street somewhere, they immediately, they all look, everyone looks. They're getting benefited just by looking at the Harinam party, no matter who they are. Isn't it? Because you can be dressed in a dress on Harinam, they get benefit too. It particularly stands out when the devotees are dressed nicely in dhotis and saris, etc. And so you can't necessarily do that at work, but just dress simply and whatever is necessary for your service. And don't accumulate too much. Don't become an accumulator. Next one. Where are we? Tom. Being so renounced seems so impractical. How can we live in a renounced way without being extreme? Yeah, as he's exhausted. I don't think exhausted is the word for it. I think you mean exalted. I think you mean exalted, isn't it? It says exhausted. You may be an exhausted Vaishnava, I don't know. The Goswamis were not exhausted. They were never satiated. They always wanted more. It was never enough. mood of the devotee. So what do? Well, we might be exhausted. That's sometimes a sign that our renunciation may be a little bit overboard. There's a difference between exhausted and exalted. But what to do? Yeah, well, we're at different stages, both in our lives, even physically. We all have different natures, we have different capacities, we have different genders, we have different conditionings. So what is one man's meat is another man's poison. So the renunciation from a Kshatriya, we can see for Arjuna, was not to go to the mountains and perform meditation. Krishna said, that's nonsense, Arjuna. You're talking nonsense. That's not your business. Your business is to fight without attachment to the results. That's renunciation for a Kshatriya. He could tolerate, the Kshatriyas can't tolerate not having a place to control, manage their nature. And they have to do it properly according to religious principles. So renunciation according to Varna and Ashram is according to the guidance of religious principles, Guru Shastra, Sadhu. So it's the idea is we Nirbandha Krishna Sambandhe Yukta Viraga Uchite, this important instruction from all the Goswamis' life, is not to reject things unless you're told to by your guru, but it's not to reject anything if it can be used in the service of Krishna. Renunciation means learning how to use whatever situation we're in relationship with Krishna. You may be very rich, and Prabhupada many times told devotees, you stay where you are, but you do it for Krishna. That is renunciation. You study, but you do it with the intention of serving Krishna. Different situations are there. Sometimes Prabhupada would say the difference according to the individual. But whatever it is, the whole idea is yat karoshi dashnasi, yat jahosi didasya. At our stage, this is a little mix, karma mishra bhakti, but this is how we become renounced. We offer the fruits of our work, whatever they are, to Krishna. And at the same time, we try to chant Hare Krishna and hear about Krishna and try to follow the devotees of Krishna as best we can. Try to follow their guidance as best we can. Giving up our false ego, giving up our intellectual, so-called intelligence, independent intellectual analysis, etc. That may be used sometimes in devotional service, but we shouldn't be thinking it's mine and this is my guideline. Arjuna did that. Krishna said, you're a damn fool, Arjuna. I showed you the Sochastam, Bhagavadam, Shabasa say, you don't know what you're talking about. Talking nonsense. He was talking from his own, you could say, realization at that time, his own learning. He said, no, you're missing the point. And then Krishna took the role of the intelligence. Kindly instruct me, Arjuna said. Kindly instruct me, tell me what to do. That's the intelligence of the Lord coming through Guru Shastra Sadhu. That way we can learn what is proper renunciation and not I use this word sometimes. I may have used it, you may have heard it. There's a word in English called premature. Have you heard this word? Premature. It means when something's too early. And sometimes devotees do things like that. I call it prema too early. We want to get, we want to get the fruit without going through the procedure to reach that place, because it's not a mechanical staircase. It depends wholly and solely on Krishna's mercy. And when he sees that we're following appropriately the process given by the acharyas, and Krishna's mercy descends in the form of course, it's the Ladini Shakti ultimately, but it descends into our work to guide us on our path back to Godhead. So bear that in mind. The Goswamis are living examples and giving through their literature. Raghunatha Dasa wrote a few literatures, but they're on a very high level of praying. They're not for our present, say, understanding. Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami, they wrote books more. They also wrote on that level too, but they specifically wrote books which were relevant. Sanatana was receiving the instruction from Lord Chaitanya to write literature on all the various aspects of Vaishnavism, and Rupa Goswami particularly on the science of bhakti. So we have those literatures, particularly the Nectar of Devotion, particularly. Sanatana Goswami has written, of course, there's other literatures, Bhagavatamrita and so on, which is also for devotees, aspiring devotees. And Hari Bhakti Vilas, but that's something which we don't necessarily need to get involved in too much. It was written particularly for a specific purpose, reason, to establish the Siddhanta, practical application of Siddhanta in the field of the situation of the Smarta Brahmins, the Vedic culture, and so on and so forth, to establish Gaudiya Vaishnavism as completely authorized, even based upon Vedic statements, etc. And so in Hari Bhakti Vilas, we find so many statements which may or may not be so relevantly appropriate to a time, place, and circumstance. If nectar devotion is not time, place, and circumstance, it's an eternal science. So, yes. Who's next? Haridas. Haridas Thakur used to chant the holy name before he met. Yes, he did. He was mentioned a few weeks ago on Haridas Thakur's Tirubhav, or Abhibhav, I can't remember, but how Haridas Thakur was initiated even before he appeared in this plane. He was initiated in the transcendental Navadvip by Lord Gauranga himself. The Lord himself gave him the name. Your name will be Haridas, he said. And you will chant 3 lakhs of names a day, and you will be my chief assistant for spreading the holy names, and you will appear in a Muslim family, and you will be devoid of any element of pride. And you will show, one of my most important lessons is that it doesn't matter where you're born or who you are, what you're from, or what your karma is, anyone can become a pure devotee. This is the lesson I want you to teach the universe. And this is the most important lesson, practically, in this Sankirtan movement. Anyone can become a pure devotee. We just have to follow the process. So yes, he was chanting 3 lakhs names. He was born in Burun, different names, pronunciation there. And he was chanting 3 lakhs names before he even met Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Maybe even before Lord Chaitanya appeared in this world, almost certainly, because he left home as a young boy and went to the forest. For a long time he was chanting there. And he was 36 years or 37 years senior to Mahaprabhu. So he was chanting there in Benapal. He delivered the prostitute. Then he went to the house of Raghunatha Dasa Goswami, Vajundra's house. But chronologically, not there's no serious chronology for much of it. But for many years, he was chanting 3 lakhs names, initiated by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. And it's said that this took place, definitely it took place, because we see in Chaitanya Bhagavat that before Lord Chaitanya appeared, Haridas Thakur was staying with the Advaitacharya in Shantipur and then Bulia. And whilst he was in Shantipur, he and Advaitacharya were praying for the Lord's descent. They were chanting together and praying for the Lord to appear in this world. It was definitely before Lord Chaitanya appeared. Next one. Mark Madhusevada Prabhu, did Krishna's Kaviraja give devotional service in Krishna Lila? Yes, he did. In Krishna Lila, you mean to say, is he in Krishna Lila? He is. He's also a Manjari. I've forgotten what one he is. Someone can look it up. He's also a Manjari in Krishna Lila, so he's certainly capable of delivering Krishna Prem and Madhurya Ras and Manjari Bhav, etc., because he himself is a Manjari. As the other mostly all the Goswamis in our line, practically speaking, are all in that mood of Manjari. There are different lines. In our line, they're mostly the assistant. This is the most intimate, confidential role. Such personalities know more than, even more than the Sakhis in a sense, because they're there when Radha and Krishna are together. The Sakhis are not. Very intimate situation. The Goswamis, Rupa Goswami, Rupa Manjari, and Sanatana Goswami, Rasa, I don't know, I've forgotten who they all are. Rati Manjari, Rasa Manjari. Raghunatha Dasa is Raga Manjari, usually known as Raga Manjari. And they're all Manjaris. They're all working together in the spiritual realm in Lalita, under the shelter of Lalita Devi. So we don't know how fortunate we are to be in this line of Parampara disciplic succession, passing down all rasas, not just the rasa of Madhurya Rasa. All rasas are passed down through the disciplic succession. They're all available in the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya by chanting Hare Krishna. All Lord Chaitanya appeared, it said he appeared here to distribute these 4 loving devotional exchanges, these 4 positive rasas to the world. So they're all there through the Sankirtan movement. And different people will pick up differently. They're all there in their pure form. Just chant the holy name of the Lord purely. Everything will be revealed. Everything. It's not a matter of intellectual analysis or even memory that can be utilized, but it's actually a matter of surrendering to the holy name of Krishna, hearing Krishna Katha, to be absorbed in that sound vibration. And it's not even just, that includes the mood of surrender, the mood of completely dependence on the Lord, this Saranagati, this mood. This is the forerunner of the awakening of Bhava and Prema and songs. Completely surrendered mood, nothing else. Completely, no other. Krishna said, this is where it begins. Sarva Dharma Prachita. Completely surrender me. Give up all other shelters and surrender to me. I will then really protect you from all sin. In other words, remove all the anarthas from our heart. That's what it means. It doesn't mean, protect you from falling off the roof or having a car crash or protect you from going to hell or something. That may or may not be there. But it means removing all of the trace remnants of anarthas within our heart as we surrender to Krishna. This is his reward. Material people think it means he'll give you money, he'll give you a house, he'll give you a wife, he'll take those away. That's his real reward eventually when we're ready, not prematurely, when we're ready. His real reward is that we no other shelter. He takes any other idea of any other shelter away, and we completely surrender to Krishna with our life force, completely surrender. No interference with our stupid intelligence, or no interference with our, lusty senses or our wild minds or that of others. Nothing. Focused on Krishna. Everything we do, focused on Krishna, an elevated state. So that's where we're working towards. That's what Bhagavad Gita teaches us, to come to that platform. And then what you do in that surrendered state, Srimad Bhagavatam, absorption in Krishna Katha, absorption in pure devotional service, Anya Vilasatashrim, Jnana Karmajanavatam, and then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu giving us everything, absolutely everything, including a living example of transcendence. Entering into the Sankirtan movement is you could say this, amazing. Materialistic people, they want to fly to other planets in some mundane machine. This Sankirtan movement is like a transcendental tsunami. That just anyone who gets in the way, it just gets swept up and just taken out of this world back to Godhead. Just absorb ourselves in the Sankirtan Yajna. Sankirtan, chanting, devotional services according to the acharyas of the Sampradaya, devotional service, pure, cultivating pure bhakti, pure chanting of the name, distributing this message everywhere, every town and village, Lord Chaitanya said. Distribute the message. This is how we get Lord Chaitanya's mercy, because it said you cannot get Lord Chaitanya's mercy without Nityananda's mercy. And Nityananda said, you can't get my mercy unless you preach to the Jagais and Madhais. Preaching, sharing what we've got. This is how we get the mercy line. We can't get there. Krishna's mercy, Radha Krishna's mercy. Krishna's mercy without Radharani, without the mercy of the gopis, you can't get that. Without the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, you can't get that. Without the mercy of Nityananda, like this it goes down. So this is the most merciful incarnation of God. This is Sankirtan movement. Take advantage of this form of the Lord, the Sankirtan movement. Hare Krishna. Who's next? Hey, we got someone. Who's this here? Oh, they're all running in. There's many things rolling in here. Hare Krishna. Where did Haridas receive the mantra from? I just mentioned that. I should wonder. When in time did the mantra was introduced in our Sampradaya? We know he came from Ishwara Puri to Lord Chaitanya. Where did the mantra come before that? It's always there. It's not always manifested. According to time, place, and circumstances, the Lord manifests himself. The mantra was chanted. It's a Vedic mantra. People were chanting it. But what they didn't know about what's called Prem Sankirtan. They were chanting the mantra in reverence amongst all the Vedic mantras with a reverential mood to, Vaikuntha. This is a Vedic mantra. Hare Krishna. It's just one of the many mantras there. All in reverence. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Haridas Thakur, Madhavendra Puri was the first one who revealed it. He was the first one who revealed this Madhurya Ras Nam Bhajan. It wasn't revealed before. It may have been there, but it was not revealed. Pure devotees in that mood, but generally it was not heard of, even in other sampradayas. So Madhavendra Puri was the first one in our sampradaya to reveal this, and that was then injected into Ishvara Puri. Who then, of course, Lord Chaitanya is the source of it, but through this means, then Ishvara Puri gave this as initiation to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu what's that place they go for? Shraddha, what's it called? Anyway, Gaya. Lord Chaitanya went to Gaya to meet Ishvara Puri, and there he awoke, and Lord Chaitanya was a repository of love of God anyway. But there he went, and that's where it actually manifested. After Lord Chaitanya he was chanting Hari Nam. Ishvara Puri said Hari Nama, Hari Nama, Hari Nama, Eva Kevalam, Kalona Steva, like that. Then he came in, overwhelmed in chanting the holy names of Krishna. But it was going on. Lord Chaitanya's many followers were there prior to his appearance. They were chanting different names of Krishna. It may not have always been the Hare Krishna mantra. When Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was asked, how do we perform Sankirtan? One of his devotees asked us, how do we actually do this Sankirtan? You say we should 24/7 be performing Sankirtan. How do we do it? Lord Chaitanya started singing. Hare Nama Krishna Yadavaya Namaha Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha Gopa Govindaram Shri Madhusudan Giridhari Gopinath Madan Mohan. He started singing those lines. Later on, Narottam Das added to those lines. So Lord Chaitanya sang these lines. This is how we perform Sankirtan, the name of God. But for generally speaking, Lord Chaitanya was chanting and emphasized the chanting of the Maha Mantra. And others were chanting different names of God. You see the nocturnal kirtans are chanting Hari, Hari, Hari Bo, Hari Bo. But they're on a different plane. They're on the transcendental platform. It's not like they're practitioners. They're perfectionists. We're practitioners. So Lord Chaitanya, for the practitioners particularly, has appeared, and Lord Radha Krishna has appeared as a Maha Mantra. And Lord Chaitanya made it public. It wasn't public before. Haridas Thakur also, basically, they were keeping it to themselves. Haridas Thakur, Lord Brahma, he's more than Lord Brahma, he's many things, but he was, they said, the question asked, he was initiated directly by the Lord when he was performing, after he'd stolen away the calves and the cow boys, so to speak. He went to Navadvip on the unseen, unmanifest, let's say, plane within this universe. And there he performed austerities for a long time. And then eventually the Lord appeared before him to fulfill his wish, to become free of pride and to be completely born of a form which has no pride whatsoever. So the Lord fulfilled his desire and said, you will be Haridas. He gave him his name personally and his sadhana, chanting japa nonstop, and what his role would be, and to be his assistant in spreading the holy name. Lakshmi Priya, please, yes. We are very much indebted to the Goswamis for what we have here in Vrindavan. They perform so much austerity. Kartik starts on Wednesday. Great. Please give us some advice on taking advantage of this month. Seeking your blessings with the home programs we have planned. That's one thing. Go ahead with these programs. They're fantastic. These Damodar preaching programs where everyone gets the chance to make tremendous advancement. And you can distribute tons of books at these programs too. It's a good thing to do in Kartik, distribute more books. It's a good thing to do anytime. More kirtan, more books. One time Prabhupada was asked this question in Vrindavan in 1972. I think Guru Das asked him, what do we do during this Urja Vrata period, Prabhupada? It's Damodar. We do some special austerities. And Prabhupada said, yes. He said, yes, you do. You stop eating entirely and you chant 24 hours non-stop. Everyone's looking, what? Off the line. Prabhupada looked around, he said, and then Guru Das started going, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. I said, that's another madness. You cannot do it. But that's what you should do. It's not a question of just not eating. It's a question of constant chanting. So do the needful, but just try to take advantage of this opportunity. Prabhupada didn't make a big issue of it in general. He said, just sing the Damodar Astakam prayer, offer lamps to the picture of Yasoda Damodar, and and whatever else you can do. He didn't make a big thing about fasting and stuff like that. That was, you might do that if it doesn't interfere with your service or your health. Be careful of your health, by the way, and especially your service. Do the needful. And if you can chant more, great. And do more book distribution, great. But that doesn't mean that we disturb everybody around us, or we disturb our service, which we've got, or we disturb our health, etc. I haven't got time. I got to finish my 64 rounds. You got your wife's lying there, pneumonia or something. I got no time. I got to finish my rounds. I'll call the doctor when I finish my rounds. Haridas did that with a prostitute, but it's a little different situation. You got to do the needful, But it should be more conscious. Try to be more Krishna conscious during this month. And if you're doing Damodar programs, I hope you do real well, because it's a wonderful program. I wasn't directly involved, but I was in a situation where this program basically started. I'm in Malaysia. Malaysia was basically the forerunner of this Damodar program. Uttama Chaitanya in Malaysia started this fantastic program and doing thousands of programs during Kartik. Hundreds of devotees doing dozens of programs each, almost every night, man. Some devotees were doing more than one program a day, 3, 4, 5, 6 programs a day of this Kartik lamp program, going to ordinary people, Hindus or whatever, not just Hindus, Chinese people, even Malays were taking, Muslims were taking part in it. Great program. They come and they just offer a lamp for good luck or whatever they think it is. And then they usually give a donation or take a book or prasadam, and so on and so forth. So many people became members through that program. So many. And many became devotees. Thousands of Bhagavatam sets distributed. It's a really good program. I wish you all the best if you're doing it in Brisbane, Malaysia, wherever you are. Good program. Find out. Don't ask me how to do it. You can ask Lakshmi Priya or someone who's been doing it for years. Devotees in Malaysia, of course, Middle East, and it went to the Middle East, and it went to the, Mauritius and other South Africa, this country, that country, and all over the world program. But they do it in public. They do it in the street, right in the middle of town, right in the main square. We set up. They do it in the West now. In New York, they did it. Ram Roy does it in New York with his Harinam party there in New York. They have Damodar Puja. Their public come up, ordinary people, they just let them offer a lamp to Damodar and offer a flower. How much benefit they do get. Incredible program. Hare Krishna. All the best for Kartik. Thank you for reminding us. Jai, well, that looks like it. Okay, we'll have a little kirtan. Thank you all so much for joining us today on this glorious day of the Tirubhavs of our great acharyas. Of course, they never really leave us. He reasons ill who tell that Vaishnavas die while thou art living, still in sound. The Vaishnavas die to live, and living try to spread the holy name around. Jai Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram Rama Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Encore. Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Oh, Hare Krishna Radhe Vijay Krishna Krishna Hare Hare I can see Radhe on the screen Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Bolo Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Nitai Gaur Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaur Haribo. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Krsnadasa Kaviraja Goswami ki jai, Shri Raghunatha Goswami ki jai, Shri Raghunatha Dasa Goswami ki jai, Harinam Sankirtan ki, Brihat Madanga ki, Go Premanande, Haribo. See you on the net next time. Hare Krishna. Jai. Stay locked down at the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada. Haribo. Haribo.
Haribo!
Haribo.
Haribo!
Haribo.
Haribo!
Nobody there today. You're all silent.
Hare Hare.
Hey, Haribo.
Haribo!
Haribo.
Haribol! Haribol!
Premanande Kartik. Kartik Damodar Rasa Damodar Rata Ki Jai. Haribo.
Haribol, Maharaj. Haribol, Maharaj.
Haribo.
Haribo!
Jai. Oh, glory to you wherever you are. Haribo.
Haribol, Maharaj.
Here. Haribo, everyone. New Zealand, Australia, Malaysia, Philippines, India, Fiji, England, Ireland, America, France, Scotland, Germany, Holland, Switzerland, Russia, all over the place. Slovakia, Czech. Yes, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Jai. Oh, Haribo.